Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night and it's TalkTV, of course. It's the one place where you don't have to worry about judging anything at all because we'll do it for you, and we are about as judgmental as it gets. Tonight, I've got a fantastic panel of guests. I've got Laura Dodsworth, the author, who's got a brand new book out called Free Your Mind. Lance Forman, the fish man, as he's now known, brilliant raconteur, and of course, former politician as well. Daisy McAndrew, TalkTV's very own host of The Talk, and Leon Emirali, former special advisor to Downing Street, when they used to know what they were doing, I presume you would say. Here's what we're fighting for, Plank of the Week. I hope you're enjoying yourself and it's not too hot, because we are, of course, in the dog days of summer. But right now, let us kick off straight away, because, Laura, we've got a lot to do here. There's an awful lot of planks out there, and some of them for the first time are appearing. This particular one, though, has been here before. Who is it?
Well, that's because it deserves to be.
Yes.
I am nominating the Plank of England.
Excellent.
I mean, the Bank of England.
Yes.
So it used to have the nickname the Old Lady,
Yeah.
Threadneedle Street.
It did.
Although these days, I think the old non-binary person of Threadneedle Street, or maybe the old menstruator of
Yes.
Threadneedle Street would be better.
Chest feeder.
You see, it's been reported that there are a number of policies going on in the Bank of England that shows it's joined this kind of like mad race to adopt radical trans ideology to get to the top of the Stonewall list of 100 employers.
Yes. And this is a new thing that we discovered this week, isn't it? That there is this Stonewall list and there is this kind of guidelines that people are taking on, incredibly, including lots of banks.
It's been around for some years, and the thing is, I think it probably started with really worthy aims of making gay, lesbian and bi people feel tolerated and accepted and welcome in the workplace. But it's become about something else. It has. It feels these days like it's more of a competition to see which companies can let go of reality the fastest and the hardest.
Right.
So what's been reported this week is the Bank of England have pledged to upgrade their toilets to gender-neutral toilets, which, sorry men, is no upgrade for us ladies at
Well, do you
all.
know, I read that it's happening only on the 7th floor as well. I don't know what happens on the 7th floor.
No,
of the Bank of
that's going
England.
to be just unisex toilets on the 7th floor, so no ladies can
What
go
goes?
to the
Is there
toilet
something
on the
special
7th
that happens
floor.
on the 7th floor?
I don't think we want to know,
You know,
what
is that
happens
where-
in the toilets at all,
We've
do
got
we?
a meeting on the 7th floor, you know.
But it's more than that. You know, they're referring to mothers in their policy documents as birthing parents.
Yes.
Staff are encouraged to put pronouns on emails. I mean, I'm somebody who, when I'm emailed by somebody who puts pronouns in their email bio, I feel a bit suspicious. I think, well, I know what sex you are. Why are you doing this? I'm not a big fan of it.
No.
And also staff have got diversity and inclusion targets in their professional appraisals, their goals.
It's a shame they haven't got any inflation targets, isn't it? Because that's really what they should be doing.
So this, of course, is the point. You know, the Bank of England has this not unimportant task of looking after the country's purse strings, inflation. And I think this gives us quite a good insight into why they didn't, say, apply a modest interest rate a little bit earlier in response to inflation, because they've been totally brainwashed by this rainbow cult of magical thinking that's all about a weird race, not to the top of a list, but to the bottom of reality.
And also, forgive me, Lance, but the City of London used to be known for having this kind of rather misogynistic culture, full of, you know, the boys that would, you know, throw money at people over bars and demand...
The Red Braces
you know,
Brigade.
The Red Braces Brigade demanding bottles of Bollinger at all times, you know.
It's this mad ESG culture.
But it's kind of gone completely the other way.
It has. I mean, the Bank of England, as you said, they literally have one job. They only have one job, and that's to control inflation.
Right.
And whilst they're focused on all this stuff, they have, if you look at their sort of policies, they have an entire policy, you know, directed towards climate change. That's not their remit.
No.
Their remit is in controlling inflation, and now they've let it get completely out of control. Mortgage rates, you know, have had to go up because, and in fact, they're even saying that we might need to have a controlled recession to control inflation. It's bonkers. The Bank of England are responsible for the mess that we are in right now.
And actually, you say they used to be misogynistic, and this has gone the other way.
Well, it was
But I
known
would
for that,
argue-
let me say.
But I would argue it's still misogynistic, because ultimately, all these policies, it generally feels to us women like we're the ones that lose out. We lose our language, we lose our toilets, we lose sex-based rights and spaces. I think that moving from red braces to rainbow lanyards is still sexist. I think it's still women that lose out.
Right. Daisy.
One of the weird things about the Bank of England doing this is I kind of get it when it's a brand. You know, let's say it's Google or whatever, a brand that's trying to appeal to a particular demographic. Exactly.
Yeah, Bud
exactly.
Light.
So, you know, and certainly this is something that divides on generational level. You know, not all young people are massively in favour of these things, but certainly a bigger proportion of them are than of an older generation. But which is the clientele, which is the customer base that the Bank of England is trying to appeal to by doing this? Because, and I slightly disagree with Laura, I don't really care about the pronouns. I don't want somebody to demand or insist that I have to choose a pronoun. But if somebody sends me an email saying that it's he, she, or it's they, them, or whatever, I'm like, fair enough, that's up to you.
But you don't have to put it back into the reply.
Exactly, as long as somebody's not insisting. That kind of thing. And equally, if the Bank of England wants to have a paternity or maternity policy that says if you're a trans man who gets pregnant, which is possible, you get some sort of maternity or paternity leave. Again, fair enough. It's not going to affect, very many people, and good for that person who's getting pregnant who gets benefits. Yeah. But the wider issue of the stonewalling.
The thing is,
let's have a look at how mad it is. Right, I've got a clip here for you. This is from America. A senator called Josh Hawley is taken to task by a teacher. Have a look.
You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women? I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies.
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get pregnant.
So you're denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Yes.
That video illustrates my point perfectly. I'm going to come back on the pronoun thing. I don't care what pronouns people use. But if somebody emails me professionally, which is what the Bank of England is suggesting they do, put pronouns in their emails, I'm suspicious about their grip on clear thinking. I'm suspicious about how well they understand reality. Yeah. And I don't want people at the Bank of England to have such clouded, brainwashed judgment.
And at the end of the day,
that's my point about
they're not
pronouns.
doing their jobs, are they?
They're not doing their jobs. And I think we're seeing this in industry after industry, where you've got people going outside of their lane. Stick to your job. If you're Nike, make trainers. If you're, if you're Wix, sell DIY gear. If you're the Bank of England, keep inflation down. What right have you got to start preaching to people on social issues that, frankly, most of their clientele don't care about?
Exactly. I mean, it's fascinating. Lance, who's your first nominee?
My first nominee is Kay Burley.
Ah, yes. She hasn't been on for a while.
Has she not?
No.
Okay, good.
Not since the party.
Here we go again. Kay Burley. Yeah. Kay put out what I think is a rather unfortunate tweet, and it's all around the whole business with Nigel Farage and Coutts.
And the banking madness.
Exactly, where Coutts have closed down Nigel's bank account. And she tweeted that if 8 banks have turned down your application to bank with them, maybe you need to ask questions about yourself, or something to that effect.
Yes, I remember it well.
I just think that's really bad. You even have sort of quite, real, and even hard lines sort of left-wingers, people like Peter Tatchell coming out and saying, I disagree with Nigel on absolutely everything, but this is an outrage. And it really is an outrage. Aside from anything else, Coutts is not really a fully commercial organisation. No. They're owned by NatWest. Yeah. NatWest is part owned by the state. Yeah. You had...
Still a third owned by the taxpayer.
Well, exactly. Right? And, this is, do you remember a few years ago there was that nurse that said, we shouldn't resuscitate somebody that's voted Tory? Yes. It's the same thing. Yeah. We should not, people should be entitled to their political views. That should be completely up to them. And
I think we've got the tweet now. We can have a look at it. But of course, the other thing is that the story has kind of meandered through various different forms, hasn't it? Because now Coutts is saying, we didn't get rid of him because of his political beliefs. We got rid of him because he didn't have enough money.
That's nonsense.
Which I'm sure is a bit after the Lord Mayor's show, isn't it? Because they didn't say that at the beginning.
Well, that's absolutely true, and it's not true at all. I actually bank with. I've got to be very careful because I bank with Coutts. I might find my own account.
Well, as far as you know,
you used to bank with Coutts.
But that is completely untrue. But even so, it's you have to ask, why are Coutts doing this? Do they not like Nigel, or are they concerned that other people might not want to bank with them if they know that? Well,
Nigel
they could
have had an approach, because that's the thing that goes on, Daisy, isn't it? Now we have these groups of people out there who go. It's a bit like getting people cancelled. They hear
I've had that myself.
Someone's going to do an event, and suddenly the event gets cancelled because the people have threatened that they're going to demonstrate, and so they go, we better not do it.
It's exactly that. It's sort of too hot to handle. And David Bull, who, as you know, was also a Brexit Party MEP, was telling us earlier this week that exactly the same thing had happened to him and to a number of other Brexit MEPs. And clearly they had the list of people who they considered wrong uns because they were anti-Brexit, Brexiteers, anti-EU, and they just tried to strike them off. And Ed Vaizey, again in the Times this week, has written an article about not only him as a Conservative MP was told by his bank, we don't think we want your custom. His mother, his octogenarian mother, was told that she was persona non grata too.
This all kind of feeds back to the Bank of England, doesn't it?
It's the same theme that's running through everything, which is really an intolerance to different social views. But the thing is, if somebody is politically exposed, that's not what's going on here, but let's say they break a law. We've got a penal system, a judiciary system. Yeah. We have a system to deal with these things. And it's not really for banks to exercise their own sense of social responsibility. Again, it's not their job.
No.
It's a very slippery slope. The sort of people who are gleeful about Nigel Farage need to be aware that it's Nigel Farage today, but who is it next week? And of course, it is a general trend. Toby Young's Free Speech Union's PayPal account was closed. Us for Them, the children's campaigning group. And a vicar recently had his Building Society account closed for complaining about some LGBT programme at the Building Society. It's basically any sort of wrong think is being published,
but
being punished.
Of course, it's not wrong think, but I'd actually like to give praise to an organisation, if I may, because I was a Brexiter, still am. In business, I have a business, and I had constantly get people emailing my customers, supermarkets and other retailers saying, don't buy from this fellow's company because he's a nasty Brexit and so on.
This is dreadful, isn't it?
But there was one fantastic response from Ocado. And it came from the PR office of Ocado. It was a response to a tweet. And they said, it's absolutely what every business should say. They said, our customers have bought this fellow's products for the last 20 years. The company, we're not interested in politics. Our customers like these products. They value them. Thanks very much. That's all we need to know.
And that's what it should be. That's what it should be. And I think what's happening is there is this categorisation now, which essentially is if you're left wing, you are good. If you're right wing, you are bad. And there is no way to meet in the middle and actually say, some people have got different views, and that's fine. Why don't we have a discussion about it and try and move forward? Because ultimately, we all want the same thing, which is we want the country to succeed. But there's this categorisation, and that's ruining people's lives.
It's the kind of Carol Vordermisation, isn't it, of the political spectrum, where everybody is horrible over there, but over here we're all great. Very
Except
weird.
The horrible people over here don't want to cancel people's bank accounts. I think it should be like a human right. Everyone should have access to a bank account because you can't be in society without access to money without a bank account. You can't do anything.
No.
You
have no credit rating, nothing.
Park your car. You need access to bank accounts, and so cutting somebody off is the same as banishing them. It's like the modern form of banishment.
Yeah, it really is. Daisy, speaking of the modern form of banishment, you've got an MP.
Yes, an MP who has already been through a sort of banishment himself, David Warburton. Obviously, just to remind people that he was caught having a photograph taken of himself with some very suspicious white paper. He has admitted taking cocaine. He has stood down as an MP, causing Conservative Party a by-election in Somerton and Frome, another one. So you would have thought, end of, move on, goodbye, Mr. Warburton. No, he just will not go quietly. And this is why I'm now nominating him for Plank of the Week. So it's a technicality. He's had a number of parliamentary investigations that have been looking into his case. Of course, he's been squealing honey traps set up. It wasn't my fault that my nose suddenly fell onto a pile of cocaine.
Didn't he take the picture himself?
It was the whiskey.
Wasn't it like a selfie that he took?
No, exactly. He said it was the whiskey what made me do it.
Of course.
I was made to drink very strong whiskey.
Yes.
And that's why I ended up... Anyway, so he's had these very technical investigations. There's a House of Commons independent panel that's looked in, and they have upheld his appeal. I'm getting really into the minutiae now. That the original investigation perhaps didn't dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and it will do another investigation, which will find him guilty of what he's been accused of, which is taking cocaine and also some accusations of sexual harassment. So my point is, please just shut up now, Mr. Warden. You've embarrassed yourself, you've embarrassed Parliament, you've embarrassed your party. Move on, go away and crawl under a rock.
Yeah, exactly right. But isn't it amazing how many investigations are going on currently at the Houses of Parliament?
It's exhausting.
It's no wonder they can't run the country. They're all too busy investigating each other.
I think we need an inquiry into whether we should have so many inquiries.
Yes, I think we should. I'll tell you what I'm going to show you now, which will shock you. And this is not David Warburton talking about cocaine. It's talking about kebabs. Have a look.
And we often say, we're going to have tomorrow night's kebab night. I'm going out. I'm going to bring the kebab home. And we're going to have a lovely We'll have a sort of family kebab. It's going to be great fun.
I mean, I can't explain that clip, really.
To be
fair, to people who don't know, the Kebab Awards is bizarrely quite an important night in the political calendar because every MP always goes to it. And it's where an awful lot of influence is garnered by some of the people that run the food businesses in this country.
And I don't know if you've noticed that he has lost a lot of weight since before the expose happened. And again, he did this kind of toe-curling interview recently where he was talking about, and I'm not dismissing people with genuine mental health issues, obviously, but he talked about how when this all happened, he fell apart and he scuttled off to a mental health facility for 7 weeks, leaving his wife and kids to face the press every day who were camped outside his house. And then he came back looking like he'd been to a health farm, half the man he was before, now looking fit as a flea and talking about kebabs.
This is not him, accidentally taking a stamp on his parliamentary expenses or, misleading Parliament or whatever. This is him taking cocaine and potentially, sexually harassing people. I don't think it's very defensible.
Yeah, he's not exactly the poster boy for the Tory party, or maybe he is. Who can say? You've got a very good nomination here.
Yes, so my nomination this week is Hannah Ingram-moore, who is Captain Tom's daughter, who we all remember Captain Tom through the pandemic, walking the length of his garden, raising money for charity. Now, at the time, and I know, hindsight is 2020, but I thought something was a bit fishy going on there, and it turns out something fishy was going on there, because this week, his daughter, Captain Tom's daughter, put in place a planning application for a spa and a swimming pool in their back garden of their home using Captain Tom's name on the planning application.
And the foundation's name, I think.
And the foundation's name on the application. And I've looked at her social media platforms. She's got Captain Tom in all of her pictures. She's got Captain Tom mentioned everywhere. And I just think that they were using this poor old boy, who served in the war, served the country. They were using him as a way of lining their own pockets.
And is it beyond doubt that she was using the money that she
we can't say for sure, but there is an open charity commission investigation into.
Also, the charity have now said they will not take any more money, no more donations until they can finish their investigation. What seems to be the case is that she made a planning application initially to set up some kind of annex to the house, which would involve an office for the foundation and also would have some place for memorabilia. But what she didn't mention was the swimming pool and the spa showers around it.
Which were essential for the running of the charity.
And the foundation said, we did not know about this application even for the office, and we weren't asked if the name could be used. And then it later emerged that she'd then put a second application in, I think after the fact, since the swimming pool had already been installed, to have a swimming pool. But the council have now said, you're going to have to rip it out.
You've got to tear it down.
So now they have to tear the whole swimming pool out. And nobody really knows where, they did give a lot of money to the NHS, but they also raised an awful lot of money. And I think quite a lot was taken out in administration.
They paid themselves very large salaries. Yes. And I think we see this actually throughout the charitable sector, where the money's meant to be going towards good causes. But when you dig a bit deeper into accounts, and actually the executives are on, six-figure salaries and enjoying the life of Riley.
Well, let's have a look at Hannah Ingram-moore as she announces the launch of Captain Tom Day.
My father, the late Captain Sir Tom, inspired the world and gave us all hope when we needed it most. Our revolution starts with the Captain Tom Day, much like Children in Need and Comic Relief, but utterly devoted to our older generation.
Especially they have the Captain Tom Triathlon. Starts off in a swimming pool, ends up in the front yard. I mean, who knows? It's quite a big house they've got as well. 1.2 million quid apparently it's worth. Anyway, listen, it's a bad day, I think, for the Captain Tom charity.
And actually, it is really sad because we can all remember what it was like in the pandemic, and he was totemic of a nation coming together and wanting to be behind him.
He was an icon of the pandemic.
Yeah. He was an icon of the pandemic, and also so many people wanted to show their gratitude to the service he'd given in the war, and then what he was doing incredibly to raise funds. And now it's so sad.
But it's all very predictable, I'm afraid. When people or institutions are deliberately built up as heroes, they often get turned into villains later. I mean, we were clapping for the NHS, and now everyone's furious with the waiting lists. Yeah. This is a classic thing that
Although
happens.
This week we were celebrating at church the NHS's 75th birthday.
The religion of the NHS.
I mean, because, you can pray for them, you can clap for them, you can wish a miracle upon them, all sorts of things.
But I think the heroic status has been dented a little bit.
I think so.
And that's what happens. It's you've got to be careful of false idols.
Yes, indeed. He walked so she could swim. That's the new slogan. Anyway, coming up next. It's me coming up next. Some islands off the coast of Britain apparently don't want to be part of Britain anymore, which is a bit weird. And also Ben and Jerry's are back. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. Well, I tell you what, we've got underway in a very strong start, I have to say. We've got lots of possible winners there. It's my turn now to do the next one, and it is the Orkney Islands. Some people have called it Orksit, because Orkney... I didn't actually know this. It's a collection of 70 different islands, an archipelago, just about 10 miles off the... Well, it starts about 10 miles off the north coast of Scotland. But they're not very happy in Orkney for some reason or other. And I'm not sure if all of the islands are, in fact, inhabited by human beings. I presume there's quite a lot of sheep as well. But it's very barren up there, very windy. It's in the North Sea. And they've got a council leader who's claiming that he doesn't really feel British anymore. And he doesn't really feel like he wants to be part of Britain anymore, and he'd rather be part of Norway. So I suppose this is the ultimate in self-identification, isn't it? He now identifies as a Norwegian, and so would like, therefore, to take all of the land that he lives on and all the other bits of the islands that they inhabit and make it Norwegian. They're 400 miles from Norway, but they're only about 10 or 15 miles from Scotland.
But they were originally Norwegian. Now, I'm surprised at you, Mike, because I thought you would be keener on this than you obviously are, because actually they dislike the Scots more than they dislike the English in the Orkney Islands.
Do they?
They're really anti mainland Scotland, and they're really anti the SNP.
Yes.
So I would have thought you would naturally be more on their side.
Well, you see, I'm slightly culturally confused on this because I am Scottish, as you know. My parents both from Glasgow, and my father always said the best Scottish people always leave Scotland and go elsewhere. So the ones that are left behind, and I can say this because it's not a racial slur, because I am one. I think the Scots are tearing themselves apart over this whole kind of Scottish national business, right? Some of them want independence, a lot of them don't. The Orkney Islands have also had to suffer the ignominy of not having any ferries, because the SNP is so useless as a government that they couldn't actually get anybody from mainland Scotland to Orkney, even if they wanted to go. But I mean, it seems to me there's 22,000 people living there. It seems to me that if they wanted to do something like this, they should at least have a referendum.
Economically, I think it would be a disaster for them, actually.
Of course it would.
I know a bit about this because
have you got fish interest in it?
A lot of salmon comes from Orkney, of course. The salmon industry in Norway, which is the biggest in the world, it is the second largest contributor to the Norwegian economy. And on the back of that, the Norwegian government are considering putting in a windfall tax on salmon farms.
Right.
So if Orkney joined them, they would find their biggest industry being hit by this massive tax. I don't know if it's that clever.
It really isn't.
The Orkney people.
Well, I mean,
the
guy in question is James Stocken, and we've got a little clip of him saying why he wants to be part of another nation.
Our culture, the way we operate as a very flat society, as a very inclusive society, very much reflects what I find in the Nordic countries.
I'm not sure what a flat society is.
Clear. He might as well have said it in Norwegian.
Well, he might as well have done. Also, apparently there's quite a lot of North Sea oil which gets kind of routed through Orkney, which presumably if they went through to become part of Norway, they wouldn't get any more either.
You know, this Orksit, whatever they want to call it, you know, I mean, it's just pathetic, really, because, you know, nations are nations. You can't really get beyond that.
But they're also saying that they might want to be a bit more like the Isle of Man, aren't they? Which is sort of has its own, and I don't know if it's the same with the Channel Islands as well, you know, where they have their own sort of sub-parliament and they can make their own laws and so on.
Right.
It's complicated.
I don't think they can. I mean, because Orkney is a constituency of Westminster, isn't it? I mean, they have an MP who represents them. I haven't heard what the MP has to say, actually, but it's very odd. It's a very strange story. It's almost like an April Fool, it seems to me. Anyway, Laura, who's your second one?
Oh, almost like another April Fool. It's Ben & Jerry's.
Yes.
On the 4th of July, Ben & Jerry's did one of their classic social justice tweets, saying that it's high time that we recognise that the US exists on Indigenous land and should be returned to Indigenous people.
Well, all of it?
I think they're making the case for certain areas. Now, there may be a case for certain areas, but I don't think we should be in any doubt about what Ben & Jerry's are doing. When they say this on the 4th of July, they're, of course, trying to provoke. They're trying to be controversial. They're more like a social justice company with a side hustle in ice cream. You know, they do this all the time. And what a thing to do on the 4th of July to try to make Americans feel ashamed. Yes,
well,
to try to reduce self-hatred. And so many of their social justice campaigns, well, they seem to have this veneer of acceptability. They're really about inducing shame in people. And
And again, it's all about virtue signalling to customers that they think will want to buy their product.
Yes.
Right? I think we've got the tweet, by the way. Let's just have a look at it. But you can carry on talking.
Well, what they have actually said before about their social justice campaign is they know it's not for everyone, but the customers they're left with are really loyal. But they're going to end up with a smaller and smaller circle of customers. What I think Ben & Jerry's should do, if they're saying this, is they should return their corporate headquarters to whichever Indigenous people lived there before.
Well,
or what about
Ben & Jerry's, of course, famously started as a sort of mum-and-pop company. And then sold out to Unilever, which is hardly, the doyen of democracy.
No, exactly. But also, what about returning the milk to the cows that they stole it from? Or returning the profits to the people who've bought their overpriced ice cream? Where does it end?
But this is not just Ben & Jerry's. I've just come back from New York, actually. My daughter graduated from university, and there were a whole number of speeches. And every single speech started off by the speaker saying, before I start, I would like to pay thanks to the Indigenous people whose land we're standing on. It's a thing. They're all doing it. In fact, really interesting and quite funny, actually. Douglas Murray gave a speech here. I think it's in Pall Mall, the club. Yes. And he said the same thing, in America, this is what they do. He said, and so I would like to give special thanks to King Charles and the Duke of Westminster. Right. The land we're standing on. But
it is ridiculous. Also, because, as you know, probably as a frequent visitor to America, the Indigenous community in America has been well compensated for whatever it was that happened. I mean, you might say that many people were killed and you can't ever compensate people for that. But, the what were known as the Indian reservations are now massive casino complexes where they put on some of the best sort of entertainment. All the top stars go and play in these. There's one in Connecticut near where my sister lives. And, the big tours go there. There's busloads of people coming up from New York. I mean, they're making an absolute fortune and they're tax-free havens.
Yeah.
So, they're not doing that badly.
No, they're not. So let's be clear, this isn't about the pursuit of justice, it's about the pursuit of controversy. So let's give it to them. They're planks.
Yeah. Well, this is the bit that I don't get, right? They're an ice cream company. What makes them think that their tweet is going to make any iota of difference? They haven't got a single legislative vote.
We're talking about
that's going to make the difference.
They also had a bit of a scandal in their headquarters in Vermont when they were using illegal migrants, I think, to work in their factories. But this is also a good opportunity, it seems to me, if you haven't seen it, to see my own offering on this with Kevin O'Sullivan, which we did, I think, last year. Have a look.
Introducing Mike and Kevin's Ice Cream for Snowflakes. Indulge in our deliciously sanctimonious flavors, such as Extinction Raspberryan, Cancel Culture and Cream, Cookie Double Warming, Non-Bineberry, Woca-Cola, Ginger Nut, and Vanilla. All made from our organic gender fluid. Mike and Kevin's Ice Cream for Snowflakes.
Very never get tired of seeing that.
That's ice cream I buy.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll buy that ice cream.
Excellent. Yeah. Lance, you're up next.
I am.
Yes. Who have you got? Keir Starmer. No, he's been in here a lot. Vanilla, as he's known,
Has he? Yeah, well...
What's he done now?
Well, he's constantly doing stuff. I mean, just completely flip-flopping. I mean, one of the big things that Keir Starmer said, and very close to home for me, as I'm sure you know, Mike, is he wanted to cleanse the Labour Party of anti-Semitism.
Still trying.
After they were found institutionally anti-Semitic by the European Court of Human Rights.
Yes.
Under Jeremy Corbyn. So there was a vote in Parliament this year on something called BDS legislation, boycott, divestment and sanctions legislation, which is basically, it's a boycotting organisation that was set up basically just to target the only Jewish state, Israel. And a lot of, well, not a lot, but some local councils have used it to stop, trading with businesses that have, interest in Israel. And so because of the anti-Semitism behind it, the government have put in place this new legislation saying no local councils are allowed to sort of support this thing. Now, you would have thought that Keir Starmer would have seen this as a great opportunity to show the world, look, I support this, I don't have a problem with it. But instead, he's basically abstained and he said, no, the legislation's no good and we can't support it. Having previously said he doesn't support BDS. So he's flip-flopping again. He
can't make up his mind about anything, can he?
He can't. He's trying to hedge in pretty much everything he does. And I think it's pretty sad, actually.
Yeah.
The guy just can't commit to anything.
He can't commit to anything. We've got a little clip of him talking about the one thing that he does feel quite strongly about, apparently.
I've been playing football pretty well every week since I was 10 years old, and I'm still playing now every week for 90 minutes. I just love being on a football pitch. And when I'm on that pitch, I'm not leader of the Labour Party. I'm just Keir, one of the teammates.
He does manage to turn everything that he says into something incredibly dull, doesn't he, Daisy?
And it's interesting because this flip-flopping accusation is sticking. You know, you see the Conservative Party really going for that. You know, Mr. Floppy, they call him, and Mr. Flip-flop and all that. But I think according to their sort of focus groups and their internal polling, that is one of the things that does stick. I mean, I think less valuable is when they keep banging on about him being Sir Keir. You know, you see Rishi Sunak always going on about Sir Keir, Sir Keir, because they think that somehow that's going to turn voters off, because somehow Keir Starmer having a knighthood, living in Islington is somehow... And I just don't think people are that shallow when it comes to choosing their politicians. I don't think they give a monkeys if somebody's got a knighthood.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends how they operate, though, because he's trying to make him some absolute man of the people, and they go, well, hang on, you've got a knighthood. Can't be that much.
He's just Keir.
He's just Keir.
Keir on a football pitch.
Yeah, just Keir, but still here, unfortunately. Coming up, we're going to talk about Fawlty Towers, which is in the news this week. We're also going to talk about the cricket and the Ashes at Australia and some bad losing. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're getting well towards the final furlong of the show, where I choose who's going to win. It used to be democratic, but it's not anymore, because that simply doesn't work. Look at the state we're in this country. Let's go for the next one. Daisy McAndrew, who have you got for us?
Right, so I've got a treat for you, because I'm going to be reminding you all of British comedy classics like Dad's Army, like Hello, Hello, because... There's an academic called Professor Gavin Schaefer, who's contributed to a book. And his thesis in this book is that when you look at these classic comedies, it tells you something about our attitude towards ourselves as a nation, but specifically towards Europe. And he believes that you can almost trace the origins of Brexit back to the 1980s, when Hello, Hello and these other sitcoms were on the telly, because they really explain how we struggle to identify with our European neighbours. I'm calling BS.
Yes, I think you're right. Well, a bit of a reach, as it was described, I think, on the talk this week. I mean, this guy clearly, I don't know whether he's got a book to sell or whether he's got a new theory.
It is part of a book,
I think he'd quite like to have everybody... that's your book. To have everybody actually think that everybody in Britain who voted Brexit hated the Europeans. We hate the French.
We're some sort of
we hate the Germans.
Basil Fawlty caricature. That's reality. It's just that we make really funny sitcoms.
We do.
Really funny sitcoms in the 80s.
Yes.
That we wouldn't be able to make now, because you'd be xenophobic.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dear,
should we have a look?
Stupid crowd!
And of course, the bit that you're going to miss out at the end there is the great line where the guy goes, "You started it," to Basil, and he goes, "No, I didn't. You invaded Poland," which is brilliant, you know. And the whole point about I didn't know Hello, Hello as well, because I was living in America pretty much when that was on. But Fawlty Towers I loved, and the whole point of it was that it was making fun of Basil Fawlty and making fun of the Major, who was a terrible racist, you know, who did that great explanation once of the cricket, where he took a woman to the cricket and explained that, you know, these people are not and he just had these terrible names for everybody. But it was funny because they were the daft people, you know.
You know why this is complete nutter nonsense? There's a British comedy that's gone absolutely crazy. It's really grown massively in Spain in the last year, and that's Benny Hill. Benny Hill gone massive. And the Spanish economy is growing 20 times the speed of ours. So maybe it's something to do with...
Well, you know, I once...
walking very fast around the...
When I was working in New York, Benny Hill was brought to New York because they were launching him on the Hispanic channel. Right?
Okay.
And we took him up the top of the Empire State Building, and nobody recognised him apart from the Hispanic security guards. They were all going nuts. They were going, "It's Benny Hill!" My God! And they all wanted their picture taken with him, and they loved Benny Hill. And I was saying this to Daisy earlier in the week that comedy and particularly television comedy in Europe, is dire. It's absolutely awful. I mean, you look at some of the shows that they produce, and they're just absolutely horrendous.
Just the concept that is responsible for Brexit is insane.
It is insane.
I voted Remain. I admit that. I find that hilarious.
Right.
So I think that's just absurd, isn't it? You know.
The thing is, a lot of academics were very pro-Remain. In fact, one study showed that 75% of academics voted to Remain. And so there's this real kind of bias. And what you see in a paper like that is something that's called motivated reasoning. So they try to apply a logical explanation towards something that's actually about their emotion. You know, a lot of people got very emotional
they're
about
trying to
Brexit.
retrofit.
It's called drawing the facts gently towards the narrative.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And basically, they're saying that anyone that likes that is a gammon. That's another way.
Well,
that's another way of
we've
looking
got backgammons
at it.
now.
You know?
If people want us to return.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Could be a new phrase that you've just launched there. Leon, you've got some cricket for us.
I do. So the Ashes are going on this week, as everyone knows, and England got bowled out. Or one of the captain got bowled out. Forgive me, I'm not a massive cricket fan. But what got my nerve, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, has sparked some sort of diplomatic row with the Aussies over the fact that they got the England captain out in a fairly tricky way, let's call it. Now, inflation's up. The NHS is crumbling.
I don't think he's actually the captain, Johnny Bairstow,
is he not?
No, I think he's one of the star players.
He's one of the star players,
yeah.
but he's the one who got out. But the fact that Rishi Sunak is getting involved in this, I just find absurd, given that where we are with the country, the problems he's got on his in-tray, and he's taken time out to start some sort of diplomatic war with the Aussies over what is effectively a game of cricket. Leave that to the back page.
This is when Johnny Bairstow. It was quite a big event, though, wasn't it, in terms of diplomatic incidents?
It was.
Because Lords, which has been seen for years as this kind of home of gentlemen, and the Middlesex Cricket Club and good manners, and they'll wear those stripy ties, and they've got the long room, and people walk through it and they clap each other. But instead, after this incident where Bairstow was sort of, basically bowled by the wicketkeeper, chucked his ball when he was kind of not looking, very much seen as a very underhand and ungentlemanly, breach of cricket ethics. And there were sort of people shouting cheat inside the long room, and Australian cricketers wagging their fingers. And it became quite a big deal in Australia. Let's have a look at this.
A spokesperson said the PM agrees with Ben Stokes. He said he simply wouldn't want to win a game in the manner Australia did. And a full-blown diplomatic incident was on. Anthony Albanese bragging on Twitter about our men's and women's cricket team. Same old Aussies, always winning. The newspapers were waging their own war, with the English accused of being a team of dummy spitters.
Only in Australia could mark.
They even accused our own Piers Morgan of being a dummy spitter.
Who was a massive cricket fan and plays a fantastic sort of celebrity pro-am cricket match every single summer in his village in Sussex. He was there, and he goes to the Ashes every single time he can get a chance to do it. And he was also depicted as a dummy spitter. Yeah. But it rumbles on, because there'll be another series coming up soon, and there'll be just an awful lot of ill feeling, won't there?
I just find it very strange that we're sort of dedicating that level of diplomatic response. The PM spokesperson has been drawn in.
I mean, you wouldn't be surprised to hear that the ambassador from Australia has been called into the Foreign Office for dressing down. We might have to send some of your spies home and all that sort of thing. I mean, it is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Well, coming up, we've got the final bit as well already. I can't believe it. It's going to be a soap actress who wants to keep her husband. Apparently, she wants to make sure he doesn't have another affair. I'd say it's a very plankish way to behave, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Coming next on Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. It's a Friday night, and we are right near, not quite the end of the show, but down to the final choice, plankery, that I'm going to be revealing to you, my second nomination. I'm not sure this one's going to win, but this was one of my favourite stories of the week, and it has everything to do with television and television stars. And it's Amy Nuttall, who I don't really know, but she's in Emmerdale, apparently, which is not a soap opera that I particularly watch. I think it's one of those that you used to catch before you watch something else. And I don't know what she does in it, but she's got a husband by the name of Andrew Buchan, who's a bit more famous, because I've seen him in Broadchurch, and he's in a new show called Better. which I also haven't seen. As you can see, I don't watch an awful lot of television. Anyway, he had an affair early part of this year when he was really filming Better with this woman called Layla Farzad, and basically moved out of the family home. He's got 2 kids with this woman, Amy, and it all went horribly wrong. It's one of those great stories of our times where you leave the marital home, you go off and think the grass is greener on the other side, and it turns out it's not greener, so then you go crawling back
with your tail between your legs.
I think I made a bit of a mistake. Anyway, she has done something which I don't think many women would do, because I think it's a really stupid idea. She's issued an ultimatum to this guy to say you're going to be...
Publicly?
Yeah.
That's why we know about
publicly.
it? Public
well, it's come
ultimatum.
out in public. I don't know how it did, but it was on the front page of the Sun newspaper, so I presume somebody told them about it. And she's following some philosophy called the 777 philosophy, which means everything's done in sevens. And she's got 7 rules, basically, for Andrew. Now, have a listen to these. I'm going to put them up on the screen for you. And I don't know how many relationships you guys have had with other people, but I don't think this would work for anyone. Number 1, you must have no contact with Layla. I'm surprised she named her at any time for any reason, right? Number 2, if you are working away from home, you must check in via FaceTime. Number 3, we must have full access to each other's phones at all times.
That's the killer.
I mean, sorry. Number 4, every 7 days we go on a date together. Every 7 weeks we go away for the night. And every 7 months, just the 2 of us go away on holiday. And then finally, our work must be on an equal footing. He apparently makes a lot more money than she does. Up until now, he's sort of taken the view that his work trumps hers at any time. That's now not going to work. But I just think this is the craziest thing. I mean, Laura, you're a woman. I can say that with absolute surety. Would you ever have a man back who cheated on you?
I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, I was with my ex-husband for 20 years. And so when I hear that, I'm honestly, my first reaction is I feel sad for her, because it's heartbreaking to be in that position. Many of us have been there. The thing is...
Well, don't make it give us all a downer, right? I think it's quite funny.
I don't know. The thing is, what those rules reveal is a total lack of trust.
Yeah.
That's not the basis for getting back together.
No.
You know, I get why she wants the FaceTimes and to look at his phone, but if that's how she feels, they don't have sufficient trust.
Yeah. Well, you can't go forward like that. I mean, I said that she's going to be very optimistic to think that every 7 months we'll just go away on holiday. I don't think they'll be together in 7 months, will they? Daisy, I mean, you took exception to my arguments about this earlier in the week, didn't you? Because you thought that I was blaming the woman. But sometimes you can blame the woman.
I did feel that she is the aggrieved party here. So he does have to, suck it up and eat some humble pie.
Yes,
and,
up to a point, Lord Topper.
And ask for some apology. Clearly, I mean, going public on this is going to be problematic because he now looks like a right Charlie.
He does.
On top of the fact that everyone knew he had an affair in the first place. As I said, the killer for me is the phone thing, because once you start, hand over your phone, it's like you've got a child in the house, not a husband or a wife, or a partner on equal footing. So
and also, it's never a good idea to go through somebody else's phone.
I mean,
there's all manner of things that it's not nothing to do with sex at all, but you might find things you just don't like.
Exactly.
A message that he sent, bloody hell, the wife's giving me a hard time, or something,
No, exactly. I mean, I was guilty, and I still have my kids. That Find My Phone app, where basically in my house it's like mum stalking everybody on the family. But and after all, there was one of it, where my other half, I was like, how many pubs did you go into this afternoon? He was like, right, I'm disconnecting. You are not going to do stalk my phone anymore. It's too intrusive.
Exactly right.
And I thought, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been calling him out on the number of pubs.
But I mean, women try this all the time. I mean, I was in a situation once where I was working in London and my wife was living in Wiltshire. And at one point she said, you're going to have to not work on a Friday, or you're going to have to leave the office at 4 o'clock because I'm not having you staying up on a Friday night. And I'm going, I can't possibly work under those circumstances. It's not going to happen.
Also, this list, right, if this was the other way around, I mean, I do feel sorry for, she's the aggrieved party, but if it was the other way around, if a man had given a woman a list like that publicly, everyone would say it's really coercive. He wouldn't survive,
would he?
No,
Isn't it coercive behaviour?
It is really coercive. He's done the wrong thing. They obviously need some marriage guidance counselling. The holiday part's a great idea.
No, marriage guidance counselling, very bad idea.
Well, they've got to try something. But I think that publicly delivered lists of rules is not...
I think it's time we heard from the men here. Lance, I mean, do you have rules at home?
Well, I can say quite proudly that I've been married this week for 36 years.
Well done.
Congratulations.
And marriage is about give and take.
It is.
And it's about respect and trust.
Yeah.
And the thing is...
And all the best marriages allow a little bit of space for either side,
is,
right?
If you're going to start laying down rules like that, you have to question, maybe that was the reason the marriage broke up in the first place.
Exactly.
There's just
that would be my point.
So, I just don't think that this sort of...
But, Luz, do you do date night? Do you do heart-shaped events?
Our entire life is one big date.
Is it? Is it?
Leon,
I've been married for 2 years, so a lot less than Lance, but no rules yet, thank God. And I agree. I mean, you don't want to be in a relationship where you've got this sort of rigid structure of rules and laws of what you can and can't do. I mean, talk about adding spark to a marriage. I don't think 7 rules is a way of doing that.
And can you imagine the crit? You'll be going, oh Christ, it's going to be 7 weeks soon. We have to go somewhere, and then you have to go. And then what do you do? And then you have to be spontaneous and go to a restaurant and maybe a hotel and maybe have sex. I mean, God,
it's very scheduled.
It's awful.
It's quite hard to work with 7, isn't it? I mean, that's quite hard to get in your head. It's like if it's every Saturday, you kind of know where you are with it. You're constantly counting. Are we on the 7th this, the 7th that? It's a terrible idea.
The poor guy, I think the minute he steps foot in the pub and sees his mates, they are going to rib him, aren't they? Because they can see out on the front page of The Sun what his rules are set by his wife.
Yeah.
But why would you make it public?
I know.
I know. What's that about?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how it got out, but I mean, front page of The Sun, I mean, a lot of people saw it. And a lot of people have been talking about it, and there's been all sorts of pieces written on the back of it. My 7 rules for why you get a crappy marriage and all of that. Absolutely incredible. Anyway, listen, we're down to the wire. We've got to now for the first time, I'm not going to choose one of my own. So that's the breaking news, because I have done that quite a lot lately. I think there can only be one winner this week. I mean, there's been some wonderful nominations, but I think it has to be Captain Tom's daughter, doesn't it? I mean, Hannah Ingram-moore, the woman who was supposedly the daughter of the most heroic man in Britain, has completely tarnished him by attempting to building a swimming pool, having it torn down, and now being told that she can't collect any more money for charity in the name of Uncle Sir Tom. I mean, it's a pretty sad legacy, isn't it? I think she must be the plank of the week. So well done, Hannah Ingram-moore. You are the plank of the week. Sorry about all the swimming costumes that you bought, but you're not going to be able to wear them now, are you? Anyway, Nadine Dorries, of course, coming next, Friday Night with Nadine. Thank you very much to Laura Dodsworth, to Lance Forman, to Daisy McAndrew, to Leon Emirali. We'll see you next week. Don't do anything stupid.
History is littered with a long line of lovable but angry men. But one man rises above them all.
What just happened?
With Kevin O'Sullivan on TalkTV. It's time for That Was the Woke That Was.
The topical quiz show that goes through all of the wokest stories of the week.
She has been fame hungry from the get-go.
Saturdays at 9 on TalkTV.